All right, well, let's get rolling. Welcome. This is the December 2023 City of Bend Utilities Public Advisory Group meeting. This is going to be a fun one. It's our last of the calendar year, and it's going to be an annual review. So we're both taking a look back at past conversations in 2023 and a look forward into future conversations in 2024. We're going to have a lot of new faces on the line, and we're going to make some time for some welcome introductions here momentarily, but want to start with our agenda and some meeting mechanics. And I should say that I am Aubrey, supporting the city team with facilitation. Per usual, we have Lori Fea, Dan Dinning, and Elizabeth O'Keefe here from the city, who are representing the water conservation and stormwater topics that we've been spending time on. Our plan today, we've got from 11 to 12:30 here in the Zoom space. It's great, by the way, to have everybody's cameras on as much as you're comfortable. If you need to grab a snack and want to turn off, while you're chewing, that's fine. But we'd love to see faces. We're interested in getting to know members and welcoming new folks. So great to make connections between names and beautiful smiling faces. We're going to take probably the first third to half of the meeting to do this little intro, welcome the new folks to the group. Lori and the team have prepared some highlights, a little highlight reel looking back at past conversations in 2023. And for the UPAG members who've been part of those meetings, we're also looking for your highlights, thinking back to all the time that we spent together. We also want to take, 2/3 to a half of the meeting at the end here to think about what's upcoming in 2024, key interest areas, topics that the city is going to be looking for feedback from this group on, and get more input from the team. So that is our agenda today.
Oh, plus we have a special guest today too, Aubrey.
And I saw she just popped into the room.
Yeah, Lucy. So we'll put you on the spot there, Lucy, but you're a high school senior in International Baccalaureate program, and you heard about the group and wanted to come listen in to cool water topics.
Yeah, so I'm doing my senior year in the IB diploma, and in my global politics class, we are doing a political engagement activity. And so I want to look at sovereignty and interdependence in water treatment and rights.
Wow.
Awesome. Big one. So welcome, Lucy. We're glad to have you. And there's going to be a lot of folks here in the room who offer great expertise on those topics. So appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
A quick note. So in general, we have been scheduling for new folks. In general, we've been scheduling a lot of our meetings virtually using the Zoom platform to date. And that is partially just for scheduling convenience for folks. We are going to we've got 15 folks on the call right now. We may end up to 20. So probably good for today's meeting if you want to, put your physical hand up in the window or use the raise hand function in Zoom if you've got something you want to chime in on, and we'll call on folks. And then Lori, do you want to kind of give a big picture?
Yeah, I can do that. So hi, everybody. So for the new folks, I'm Lori Fea. I'm with the City of Bend. I'm what's called the Environmental Resources Manager, and have responsibilities in the Utilities Department, which utilities is water, sewer, and stormwater. So kind of the regulatory aspects of things, water conservation, stormwater, managing our water rights, municipal watershed, reuse concepts, things like that. So, and thanks everybody for being here. The group, for those of you who are new to the group, so as Aubrey mentioned, usually first Wednesday, usually Zoom. We do last year we did an in-person field trip in June, and I did put a question on this slide about Mark Buckley and I had an awesome conversation yesterday morning. Thanks, Mark. And he was talking about the value of being in person sometimes. So I want folks to think about that. We'll for sure have a field trip meeting again, probably in June, but would folks be interested in meeting more than that in person? I know that adds to logistics. We have a couple of folks who do not reside here in Central Oregon, a couple of our DEQ friends. But and of course you'd have to like drive somewhere and back. But there's the benefit of being together in more than a tiny little box talking to each other, and maybe being more interactive. So just think about that. Maybe Aubrey could create a place on the mural since we're going to be using that today. And I know she sent out, so I won't go into it, but the roles and responsibilities, I'll just kind of say this about the Utilities Public Advisory Group. It's a little different than like a council appointed committee. Like we have a couple of folks here who represent the Environment and Climate Committee, which is council appointed. You're advising city council on higher level policy issues. This group is meant to provide feedback to staff in the utilities department. So the people who are on the ground implementing things, help us figure out the best way to do things and what is the best, procedures and policy guidance and things like that. So it's a little different. It makes us allow us to be a little more freeform and a little less formal, but it's really, really useful for us in the utilities department to have a group that we can ask questions of. And it also checks a regulatory box for us. We do have a need to have folks that we can interact with. It's a requirement of one of our stormwater permits with DEQ. So, thank you for helping us check that box, but this is a lot more than that. This is about us really having folks to chew on interesting water topics together. So thank you. I think I'll leave it at that unless there's any questions at this point, or Aubrey will move on to other stuff.
Looks like we're good. All right. And that was that roles document is in a couple places, but it was attached as well to the meeting reminder if you are looking for it. So we do have new faces on the line. So we wanted to, I'm going to drop this slide and we can see video cameras more clearly here in just a second, but we'd like to go around the room and just, especially with new members, hear your name, your role. Many folks on the call are representing a type of professional interest, whether that's the regulatory DEQ, water resources space, whether that is green industry, whether that is developers, or business, just to kind of chime in on what that is. And also if there's a specific goal or interest for the new folks in your place here in the UPAG moving forward. So we'll keep it brief.
We'll be moving to the mural thing at some point, but some folks, thank you, did put some of this on mural as well. I was quite interested by what beverages people like at the holidays.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to stop sharing here. Lori, we heard from you, but maybe Elizabeth and Dan, if you want to each just say hello and your role before we open it up to our new members.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth O'Keefe. I'm the city's stormwater program manager. So I manage all of our regulatory compliance for stormwater. We have two main permits. One's called the WPCF UIC permit, which is water pollution control facilities permit, and that's for any stormwater that goes to the groundwater system. And then our other permit is our MS4 permit, which is municipal separate storm sewer system permit, and that is really for managing all stormwater that goes to surface water, so the Deschutes River. So that's what I work on. Great to have everyone here.
Morning, folks. New and old, new and returning, I should say. Thanks for taking the time to join us today and make the commitment to talk with us over the next year and help us help inform our programs. My name is Dan Denning. I'm the Water Conservation Program Manager. I'm in charge of implementing basically our state requirements through the WMCP, which is our Water Management and Conservation Plan. So that's water efficiency programs, internal and external, which includes rebates, technical assistance, community education, things like that. So welcome.
Great. And then Brian, I'm going to pick on you if you want to say hello as a new face joining the UPAG.
Sure. Yep, I'm Brian Wilkinson, a civil engineer with AKS Engineering here in Bend. I manage our Bend office, and we primarily work on lots of public and private infrastructure projects. So a lot of private development work and a lot of kind of public infrastructure stuff as well. So it's all public infrastructure at the end of the day. It depends on who pays for it.
Welcome. And Kiara, am I saying that right? My sister's name is Kiara, so I'm going to probably mess that up at some point.
It's Sierra.
Sierra, there we go. See, I knew I was going to be off.
Yeah, Sierra Marshall, Oregon DEQ. I'm a stormwater specialist in the MS4 program, so the municipal stormwater program. Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Awesome. And then Mike.
Oh, we can't hear you, Mike.
See, it's not the mute button.
Yeah. Yeah, you're unmuted, but
Mike, we'll give you a second. We'll come back to you. And then Stephanie, do you want to maybe say hello?
Yes, hello. I'm Stephanie Washa. I am a local Bend architect. I co-own Riso Architecture. I'm also on my HOA, and we're dealing with stormwater issues. So that was all my calls to Lori prompted her to ask if I might be interested in this group. So thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Great to have you, Stephanie. Lucy, you already got a chance to say hello. So Shane, do you want to do a brief intro?
Sure. Good morning. My name is Shane Cochran. I'm a senior geologist with the Wallace Group here. We're a environmental consulting group, geotech engineering, construction services. My interest was just to see the content of the meetings as we deal with permitting for private and public stormwater, infiltration rates, design, things like that.
Awesome. And Mike, I'm going to circle back to you. Let's see if your sound is not yet. Shoot. Well,
dang.
we'll work on that. But welcome, Mike, as well.
Or type something in the chat, Mike. Shoot.
All right. Other folks on the call who are somewhat returning members. So maybe Bronwyn, you just want to just say hello, organization, quick hi.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bronwyn Mastrom, landscape architect with Bend Park and Recreation District.
And Mark?
Hi, Mark Buckley. I'm technically representing the city's Environment and Climate Committee, but also my day job, I work for Echo Northwest. I'm a natural resource economist.
And Wes? I surprised you, Wes. I went to the end.
You did. My mic was off. So Wes Martin, outside services manager, Bentley Pine Schools.
And Tom?
Hey everybody, Tom Headley here with Century West Engineering. I'm a project manager here in the Bend office.
Trevor?
I'm a project development manager with Paul Shums, Land Development.
Thanks, Trevor. And Ryan?
Good morning, everyone. Ryan Johnson. I'm with DEQ. I'm a municipal stormwater permit writer and inspector, and help with phase 2 MS4 implementation throughout the state. Nice to see everyone.
And Scott?
Oh no, we can't hear Scott either.
There is, maybe for Scott and Mike, not
Can
just.
you hear me now? By chance?
Yes, yes.
Sorry,
Perfect.
yeah, I got it figured out.
Okay, so Mike, we can hear.
Yeah, so I'll introduce myself while Scott's working on that. I'm Mike Zabo. I'm a landscape architect in town, Zabo Landscape Architecture. Our firm works with many of these folks on a variety of projects. We do a lot of municipality work, a lot of private development, schools, parks, and also a lot of single family home residential work. So we're dealing with stormwater and landscape design kind of on a daily basis. So
Glad to have you, Mike. Scott?
thank you.
Oh, not yet. Shoot. Well, we'll circle back. thank you guys. If you do use Teams in your professional life, like many of us do, the Zoom to Teams, sometimes you have to reset your microphone source. I apologize for that. Zoom tends to be a little more convenient when working across a lot of people in different types of professional spaces, which is why we've been using it so far. So thanks for bearing with that. It's great to have, I mean, as everybody can tell, this is a huge range of expertise that is in the room. And we do have a few members, additional members who aren't able to join us today, but who will be part of the conversation into 2024. So glad to have everybody here. I'm going to bring back up our slide share. Should be coming through. So we didn't want to spend too much time. Often we start out with a reflecting back on the last meeting. We didn't want to spend too much time here other than acknowledging that we had asked folks to contribute to a survey. And Lori, if you want to explain what we're going to do with that.
Yeah, so I think we got a little ahead of ourselves. So we got excited about this idea of asking everybody to participate in a survey and kind of pretend you have $100 and how much of that $100 to allocate to some different types of water conservation program areas. And what we realized was we want that to be a more robust conversation than just like a little segment in the meeting. And so we're going to better prepare ourselves for that and come back in April to have a much better conversation, because I think it's going to be really helpful to us. We're going to be doing some evaluation of how we're doing in the water conservation program. And this discussion will help us really just take a look at our priorities. So anyways, more to come on that.
Great. So as promised, a portion of the meeting, the first portion of the meeting, we wanted to do a little bit of a highlight reel, a little trip down memory lane of the conversations, the time we've spent together throughout 2023. This group was kind of brought back in December of 2022, actually. So the summary report that we sent out with the email was 2022 to June of 2023. We've been meeting throughout 2023. Lori has spent some time putting together a sampling of input that has been collected during that time and how the city is using it. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Lori.
Thank you. So my apologies for the busy slides. I'm not supposed to do that, and then here I did. I was trying to figure out the best way to, I guess I wanted to partly introduce the new folks to what we talked about, but for the folks who've been here for a lot of these meetings to remind us of all the topics we covered, and also to let folks know that we do appreciate your time and we're using the input. Because I know, as a person who also serves, in a volunteer capacity, I always want to know that my time was worthwhile, that was spent on something good is coming out of it. So I thought what I would do is just share kind of month by month, just a little bit about a reminder of what we talked about, some of the input that we received, and then how we're using some of that input. I couldn't put everything, so I put a few things. So the reason why this is so colorful is that, like, if there's things that are highlighted in yellow under UPAG input, and then that relates to the yellow highlighted item under how we're using it. So just for folks to know, these slides will be posted on the website. So if you want to look at it in more detail or ask questions, but I'll just kind of quickly zoom through. So last January, nearly a year ago, we were, that was really our first real meeting of this group. We did introductions last December, and then January, we kind of got into our first topics, which was talking a lot about education and outreach. So for instance, we got some input that there was only so familiarity with our program names and logos, and we had we were pulling along these kind of old logos for some of our program areas that didn't necessarily remind people that it was actually the city of Bend. And so after that discussion, we worked hard to move to logos that are clearly say it's City of Bend Utilities. We've worked on some consistent template formats, particularly for the water conservation program. So there's kind of this familiar look to all of like this social media messages. And we cleaned up some of our web pages, but more to come on that. That's always there's always work on that. Another thing was we talked about how we have a student video competition each year. A lot of folks knew about that and liked it. I wanted to, and then there was also discussion about wanting to provide more information via school kids so that not only do they become good stewards of the water, but they bring that information home with them in their backpacks to the parents, hopefully. And so I just wanted to note that we just recently signed a contract with the Upper Deschutes Watershed Council. They have a really robust and wonderful school age education program. And so we're going to piggyback onto that. And we'll be targeting, starting in the next year, 5th grade students in Bend schools and also some high school science programs. And more to come on that. I'm pretty excited about it. But anyways, just so folks know, we took you seriously about that. February was focused on water conservation rebates and incentives, really kind of an introduction to all of that and all of the rebates that we have in place or we're working towards for the year. There was some good discussion about recognizing the costs and benefits, like, you know, how much rebate or incentive do you need to give to encourage people to do something that can be expensive? And so I just added a couple of notes in there about a couple of things Dan's working on. One is the ability to offer rebates, not just through reducing people's utility bills, but also being offered the ability to offer rebates as a check, which might get us to people who aren't utilities customers directly. Or it might also help with upcoming programs where there might be a larger dollar amount, like working with HOAs on turf removal or something like that. And mentioning turf rebates, you'll be hearing about that. We heard some discussion about that at more than one meeting about turf rebates. And so we're working to make that a higher priority, and Dan's working to hopefully get something out on that for next summer. So next slide, Aubrey, thanks. March, we covered both water conservation and stormwater management. We were talking about different concepts for landscape design that involves both water conservation and stormwater and water quality management, and how we could maybe create some easier pathways for people to take the approaches we want them to. There was note that we have some great people on our committee and we should be working with them because they're already working on some things like recommended plant communities that can use less water. And so we are working with some of those members like OSU Extension and I don't know, Dan, what is Rick Martinson now? I guess I'll just call it still Worthy Environmental. He's changing over to a different organization, but it'll be doing the same things.
Yeah, so I mean, he was historically from Winter Creek Nursery and Restoration, and then now is one of the executive board members, I think, at the Worthy Garden Club.
Awesome. There was a comment we also received in March about, can we just say no to overhead, pop-up irrigation along streets? And you've heard in subsequent meetings about how we're working to update our right-of-way design standards to fully prohibit that in most right-of-ways, not just the city's capital projects, but also development projects. And that hopefully will be rolled out by the end of our fiscal year, which would mean like by the end of June. April, we talked about a variety of stormwater and green infrastructure issues and how to get them implemented. We talked about, there was some input about, we mentioned how there needs to be a hierarchy approach. Like first you try to handle your stormwater on site before you can be allowed to discharge any off site. And there was mention that we need to focus on requiring technical justification for allowing offsite. Don't just make it easy. And we also talked about, you know, maybe a concept of if people are allowed to discharge stormwater off their site, not fully managed or treated, should they have to pay some sort of fees or in lieu fees for treatment so that more regional stormwater management facilities could be built? And there was some discussion about the city being like a broker on that, you know, and how much should people be willing to pay for that convenience, which I think are really interesting topics. So I just wanted to note that this group will be introduced to the Stormwater Master Plan update over the next 18 months. And we made sure to include those concepts of regional stormwater management methods and in lieu fee options as policy discussions during the master plan update, and we'll be asking you for your input on those ideas. Okay, we can go one more slide.
I might note, you know, one thing folks who are new to the group are probably noticing there's a iteration that happens here. We've been trying to come into each meeting with an agenda that has, say, 4 or so discussion questions that the city's going to be asking for UPAG input on, as well as kind of a main topic. And many of those are coming back, as you can tell, you know, throughout the year here, and will again in 2024. So you're seeing kind of the fruits of input and the city team's efforts to evolve all of these things.
Yes, thanks, Aubrey. And we kind of built on topics as we went along over the course of the year. So, you know, in discussing more details about water conservation, you know, some of the input we received were that the development community, you know, they're focused on making these developments look good. Some people prefer grass. So, you know, how do we deal with that? But we also heard, you know, we'll do what you tell us you want to do, but you need to tell us and make the requirements more actual requirements. So just continued discussion on that idea of the right-of-way landscapes, and that we're working on making it clear, no turf for the right-of-way strips. We've been including outreach to the Builders Association, COBA. We've been working hard on coming up with templates to make it easier to implement and not be that much of a cost differential between planting grass versus planting low water native plants and different types of irrigation systems. We're also looking at how to incentivize various folks to want these low water landscapes. And Dan's working on a what we'll call a grant program for HOAs to work with them to incentivize reduced water use, maybe turf removal and other things. Let's see, June was really fun. I think people really enjoyed it. We had a big showing and we did an in-person walking tour, and we walked through several developments to kind of kick the tires on different types of residential development, as well as look at some interesting native landscapes in a park and at Alpenglow. And I think there was some really great discussion and input from that. It let us really, you know, this is what we're talking about in our meetings. Some of the comments we got there was that we were talking about maintenance of these like stormwater vegetated features, and that when we're thinking about our stormwater rates, we need to encourage, how do we find a way to encourage long-term performance and the best benefits from these facilities? For that one, the Stormwater Master Plan update will include also a concurrent rate study where we'll look at the structure of how we charge all of our customers, basically all the property owners in Bend for stormwater management. So we'll bring that discussion in. And And then the idea of templates, I mentioned templates for the right of way, but I think folks were really on board with having like pre-approved plans that developers can use for both stormwater management facilities as well as the landscape. So again, we're working on those pre-approved plans for the right of way right now. We also have a template for erosion control for stormwater, and in the future, we'll be looking to create some of those for stormwater facilities as well. And then we took the summer off. Let's see, September, we had to talk about the stormwater management program. That was mostly us talking at you about what's in this important plan we had to turn into DEQ, but we appreciated folks listening in on that. And we did receive a few comments. October, you heard a summary about our water conservation rebate program and water waste code enforcement. And some of the input was the idea again about direct rebates versus water bill credits. I mentioned that before, but that may be more of an incentive to some property owners if we can have some different ways to kind of give money up front instead of people waiting to see it as a credit on their water bill. And so we are working on that concept and being able to have more options. It's a little fun for the utility billing folks, but we are finding ways to do that. There was discussion about working with HOAs and their like CC&Rs that might be cross purposes with what we're trying to achieve with water management. And so again, we're working on an outreach and grant program for HOAs that I'm hoping will be popular. And then November, last month, we talked about how do we, help us figuring out how to reach more customers. And we also talked about, these were some of the initial topics to help us prioritize our water conservation activities in the future about, if we're targeting the right of way, how much water use is that versus people's yards? So there was a bit of a presentation about that. We'll be coming back to that more in the spring. One of the comments we received was collaborating more with BPRD because they have a lot of landscape and landscape architects and resources, and we probably have some similarities in the types of training for maintenance folks and landscape contractors that maybe we could do together. And so we're initiating some memorandum of understandings agreements with some organizations. We've been working on that with the school district, with our own transportation department, and now we're just initiating work to do that with BPRD as well. So I think this will be part of that discussion. And then I already mentioned that we'll be coming back in April to spend more time about priorities for the conservation program. So that's my really quick talk at you about, I just wanted to remind people about what we talked about a little bit for folks who hadn't been at these meetings before, and to mention that we're taking notes and we're using the information, and we'll keep looping back on that. So I don't know if there's any questions. We will post this. There also was the document that Aubrey has sent out and has been posted about there was a written summary of the first 6 months of meetings that also was utilized for this. So I'll stop talking.
Before we move to another slide, I'm just curious for our folks who've been here through those 2023 conversations. Is there something else that you would add to that kind of highlight reel of things that you felt like have been particularly interesting, insightful conversations, places where you felt like you've seen changes happening? Anything you'd add to that list? Give folks a minute to think. Bronwyn, Mark, Tom, Ryan. Is that a pretty good list? Does that feel good? Kind of looking backwards.
Yeah, that's really thorough. That was nice to have.
Yeah, and I would echo that. I think the greatest achievement in kickstarting this. And Lori, you mentioned that, you know, a year ago, this new formation of this group started and then really hit the ground running with work. The recap here is excellent. And this is a lot of the work that was done in previous years that go into the permit package, the permit reapplication or renewal package, with to show that there was an active group working on this. But I think really channeling each meeting with a directive and outcome, and then something you're working on to either carry it forward to the next meetings or you know, completing it and moving on has been really good. So yeah, thanks for the recap. That's really good to see.
Thanks, Tom.
Anybody else I can pick on to add a thought? It is nice just to take a moment and kind of two purpose. One, to acknowledge all of the work and time investment that folks on the call today have made throughout 2023, but also hopefully this is helpful for folks who are joining to get a sense of the types of conversations and a foundation of knowledge of what this group is contributing to. So appreciate that chance to share out a bit. I think our next section here is a partial preview of what we have in store, what areas the city is looking for input on in 2024. And apologies, let me just get this slide share going again. All right, so we aren't going to have a meeting in January. It's awfully close to the New Year's holiday, so we thought we would push that out just as a quick reminder. But February, we're going to restart. So plan discussion topics, and Lori, I'll shoot it back over to you.
Okay, I won't read all of these off, but I'll mention particularly the first bullet is after I've had the opportunity to talk with a few of you folks to just kind of get some feedback about how we're doing, and I really appreciated that. And I started thinking that folks might be interested in having I give a presentation every once in a while, a few of us do, about kind of a bit of history, and I'll call it a virtual tour of, I'll call it the whole water system in Bend. So some history about, and then the water sources, the water treatment, and then on the treatment, the wastewater treatment side, and disposal and reuse topics, and then water quality in general, and the stormwater relationship to that. So I was thinking that folks might be interested in me giving that presentation. I realize it'll just be mostly a presentation, but we'll make sure there's time that you can ask questions. But Bend has a really, really intriguing water history and it's really complex. And I've been learning a lot in the year and a half I've been here. It's been like a fire hose pointed at me of trying to learn history and regulations, and like on the drinking water side, just the fact that we have 16 water rights for the water that comes out of your tap. There's just a bunch of interesting things like that, and they relate to what might be happening in the future, about how much water do we expect there to be for availability, and what's coming down the line that might affect water quality discussions or ability to reuse water more beneficially and things like that. So I just wanted to mention that. I thought we might plan that for the February meeting, and then kind of jump back into the more specific topics for March, April, and May.
Any questions, I guess, on some of the topics that are here? Any thumbs up for any of these that are particularly strong interest to folks?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes,
Scott,
yay.
Okay, hi, this is Scott Wallace with the Wallace Group, and yeah, glad to be on this morning. I'm a hydrogeologist and have a lot of interest and experience in the Deschutes Basin, particularly the upper Deschutes Basin, over the last 30 years. So yeah, Lori, I think an emphasis, or at least some emphasis, on the groundwater system and the city's surface water and groundwater supply is definitely on point and timely. The issue with Oregon Water Resource and you know, the number of exempt wells and all the issues around those that are water levels are declining, wells are needing to be deepened, wells are going dry. You know, the city taps into the Deschutes Aquifer. And so what is the city looking at and the future of water supply related to the aquifer? Because we all know that, you know, the recharge is not keeping up with historical levels. And so, you know, there's a whole conversation around that, education as well as things that the city and the committee could dive into that is timely and very appropriate for where we're at.
Great, thank you, Scott.
Hopefully folks are also very excited about stormwater, which is definitely going to be on the docket here with the master plan unfolding through next year too. All right, I'm gonna stop share again one more time. We thought it might be nice to take a minute. I had sent out a link to a digital whiteboard space. It's a mural prior to this meeting, and I'm gonna ask folks to chime in here on a quick little prompt. So the mural space, we're gonna use the same space. For folks who are new, we've used that space throughout the year, so it was another opportunity to see some of the input that had been collected between meetings. We wanted to give people a chance, you know, if something occurred to folks after having the hour-and-a-half conversation that they wanted to add to some of the discussion topics, we wanted a space to do that. What we would like today is just for people to take, we're going to take, you know, 3 to 5 minutes. I'm going to give you a link and a quick intro on Mural if you haven't used it before, but dive into this idea of thinking about the UPAG, thinking about water resources in Bend, about stormwater and water conservation. You can respond to all three. I like, I wish, I wonder, or you can pick one of them. So I like that the UPAG only meets once a month. Great. It can be process oriented, or it could be, I wonder if we could have, you know, some new way of some technology or something. Could we have a little more information on this? So you can answer at a topic level. You can answer, you know, big picture, small picture. You can make it about the process, whatever your pleasure. We are just looking for your interest to help us refine our plan for 2024. So if you already are familiar with Mural, you can jump in. If you aren't, I'm going to wait to share the link with you just for a minute, and I'll give a quick tutorial on instructions, I should say, on how you can use the navigation tool. So
I see Mike Zabo moving around in there. That's
perfect.
good.
Jump in. Yeah, if you're used to this, it's a lot like a Jamboard or Miro or other tools. So once you click the link, you can join as a guest. No sign up needed. When you're in the space, you're going to see there's a heck of a lot of stuff in here. Gorgeous, interesting things to dive into. Up at the top, there's this little hamburger that clicks on and off an outline, which is an easy way to jump to a space in the board. This is where we'd ask for folks to do a little introduction, self-introductions. If you want to add more there, excellent. We also have the roles and responsibilities here, or quick mural tips if you're new to the space. The place I am directing us to for today is this December 2023 space. So, you know, click into that and you can use your Zoom and click and drag around in the space. Pick your question prompt of choice and answer it, or answer all three. Any option is great. To add a note, which is where you would collect your ideas, you can either use one of the existing ones that say add your ideas here. You can double click somewhere in the white space, or you can use this left-hand toolbar and just drag and drop something over. So a few ways to do that. So that is Mural. I'm going to hit send on the link in the chat. So you can use it in your browser and then just go to that December 2023 item. And if you know, you can also just jot it down next to your computer or something too. But we're interested in just collecting some ideas. And again, big picture, small picture, whatever your pleasure. And I'll give folks some quiet time here just to collect some thoughts.
Tom is visiting Spider. That's frightening.
Auto-generated. Hey, spiders are cool. An important part of the ecosystem.
True. So let us know if you're struggling to figure out anything. Can help you out. Ooh, I can see notes being generated. Awesome.
So if you're coming in new to this space, you might have heard something that Lori talked through that you're kind of curious about or would love to spend more time on. You know, I like that we're talking about stormwater and water conservation together. I wonder if we could spend a little more time on groundwater. Things like that are great. You can add detail or just a short statement. All of this is just to help us maybe frame up information that we might bring forward so that you guys feel good and in a good space to provide feedback. It might indicate some meeting topics, special topics or special guests that we would bring forward as well. And Dan, I'm going to make you our time person. So you're going to give the nod when you think we're ready to come back.
And just from the viewing, there's like a flurry of engagement happening. I love it.
Yeah, this is awesome.
You want to do like 2 more minutes, Aubrey, maybe?
Sure. Yeah. And then we'll open up the mic so folks can, maybe share not everything that you put down, but a couple things you might want to voice here with the group. All right. Do like 30 seconds more.
Here's some good juicy topics here.
All right. If you're still typing, that's okay. but I'm gonna bring us back to the group. What I would like to do now is just give an opportunity, might even just check in with each person on the call here, and you can share maybe just one thing, pick one thing that you wrote down to chime in about, and let us know if there's a like, a wish, a wonder that you put down on the board. So I might start. Stephanie, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. I think I fear that some of my comments may be naive, considering I am not quite as educated as some of you about what is going on currently, but I'll just jump in anyway. I know that some of the smaller issues about, better faucets and things like that to save water is important and interesting, but we have a much bigger issue on our hands with running out of water. And I just wonder if there's a group currently, or if there should be a group that's actually looking at coordinating with other cities and states about creating like groundwater recharge on a bigger scale that might solve some of this like bigger picture problems that we're facing in the next decade.
Great question.
Yeah.
I'll try to incorporate some of that in the February presentation.
So the big topic of water scarcity and recharge.
Yeah.
Let's see, Trevor, do you want to?
No, I was just more focused on what everybody else was putting down.
It's a good chance to see kind of where everybody's headspace is at too. So I appreciate that. Yeah. Mike, what about you? And I can circle back to.
Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, yep, we can hear you.
My earbuds died there, so charging them. Let's see. I guess my two things that I put on there. One was, I wonder if the community at large really is fully aware of kind of how dire the situation is with our aquifers. In my personal life, you don't hear about it much. I mean, people aren't very aware of it as far as I know. And I think if they were, they might change their ways a little bit, take it more seriously. And then kind of a pet peeve. The other thing I put on the I wish is, it's kind of a pet peeve of mine that people equate xeric landscapes to desert scapes, or essentially no landscape, and it's just a rock garden.
Yes, let's change that, please.
Yeah. So I think educating people that you can have a xeric landscape and have a beautiful landscape at the same time, I think would help convince people to make some changes on their properties.
Nice, appreciate it. Yeah, the appreciation of desert aesthetic. Bronwyn, is there anything you put down? One thing you want to share?
I think mine are kind of related in that I like that there's this group coming, from different disciplines and perspectives together to share information. And I really do hope that collaboration can have a collective impact on the community where there are tangible and visible outcomes. And I did not put this down, but whoever mentioned the other water providers under the I wonder, I've wondered about the same thing. And if there's any, whether it's now or in the future, ability to pull them in for more consistency as well.
I keep wanting to jump in and say things, but I won't. But we're going to use all this.
Brian, how about you?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I mentioned the other water providers, so I don't know how policy or guidelines set by this that are citywide might affect roads or Avion, and if those goals are in alignment with, all of those, if they need to be or not. Obviously, this is a Bend water system utility, right? But these policies are citywide, and I think if you look at the city of Bend, all of the future service area is in Avion's water service area. So where the impact is, I mean, city of Bend system is obviously somewhat limited to where the future UGP and other things are, is mostly Avion. So I think that's important to note, and where their water comes from and all those things. I think the other item I had up there was dry well testing. I think that the COSM and the kind of the standing header water test is really unachievable in the field. And I think that everybody that's practicing knows this, but so there's be interesting to see some testing that can be done uniformly by everybody across all public and private projects that would be a little bit more practical and repeatable for everybody.
Great, thank you, Brian. Emily, anything you'd add?
Agree with what's been said so far. I think this is a great exercise, and I put that I like that, you know, topics that historically may have been siloed or tackled by different groups are being integrated here. I think it is incredibly value added to each of those topics. You know, I'm wondering, you know, I'm at Oregon Water Resources Department, love to see that there is interest in coordinating and better sharing information on the groundwater system and available water and all of that, or on water quantity. Happy to help coordinate on that in the future as desired. And from a process standpoint, I wonder if, you know, there are opportunities to take this framework and scale out or exemplify how it's being done within City of Bend for other municipalities in the state or even Central Oregon.
Thank you. Sierra, I'm going to stumble every time. Sierra, do you want to chime in?
Sure. First off, I liked all your topics you have for 2024 for the year coming up. I thought they were great. Obviously, my focus is stormwater, but I love that you guys include water conservation in your utilities like discussions. I previously came from a municipality and worked in water conservation for years, and a lot of the times you see it kind of as an outcast project department would rather. So it's cool you guys include that in these meetings. I really appreciate it.
It's, yeah. Integration of topics seems like it's working well. I know it keeps things interesting and lively, and we often pair the two together or do kind of an alternating focus, which keeps it lively. Let's see, Tom.
Got it. I put a wonder in there, and I know Lori's sitting there trying to, you know, think about answering each one of these as they start. But I do wonder, you know, how much outreach has been done within the city across the EIPD is the one that comes to mind. Maintenance, maybe also facilities, you know, and I know there's a lot of that already, but I kind of softballed this one to make sure it was part of the conversation. Just making sure the city knew that it had this resource. And Lori, I know you and Elizabeth and Dan, the team are really good about reaching out across the city itself, but being up a refresher saying, hey, you've got a new set of faces and then perspectives coming in for UPAG in 2024. Are there wish list items that maybe EIPD has in mind that they'd like to throw our way for consideration? And you may have already done that, so you'll have to just wait a little longer, I guess, Lori, until you get the feedback going on the comments here. But yeah, that's the one I wanted to throw out there because I know it's been a really great convening space in the past for that.
That was great. We'll find ways to talk about all these. I would take up the whole meeting time, but just so everybody know, EIPD Bend has tons of acronyms, and if you don't know, EIPD is basically the engineering department.
And Lori was really good about last December. I told her forgotten here, but yeah, really good about calling us all out for our acronym. So you have to start your acronym with the spell out and then go from there. Engineering Infrastructure Planning Department.
We have even just in people's signatures, you can see there's already a lot of acronyms just in that. Ryan, do you want to add something else?
Sure. I just want to say I really like that we've included industry professionals in the conversation, and there's been a lot of insight that I've gained just listening to them, and it's a really great forum to just have candid discussions with them yeah, I've learned a lot, especially from the landscapers and contractors. So that's been great. And then I just wanted to say, I wonder if we could get more DEQ folks involved in certain conversations and just kind of as experts. And I know we have a hydrogeologist here now, but you know, we have UIC folks who could attend and have kind of guest appearances at certain meetings, and who would be willing to have candid conversations as well. So just a thought. But I'm glad Sierra's here. She has a lot of great experience. So thanks.
Thank you, Brian. Mark, I don't think I've called on you yet.
Right. Yeah, no, thanks. Sort of tactically, I appreciate that so many people mentioned interest in meeting in person. I'll say with the ECC, we started out virtually during COVID, and then we switched to in-person meetings, and I found it really rewarding, easier conversations. And I honestly get a lot more out of it, even myself, the side conversations, and even sort of breaking into subgroups and subcommittees that dig into certain issues deeper. So I like that. And then at sort of a higher strategic level, I'm always interested in opportunities for multiple benefits or improving the overall efficiency or equity or total value of a program when you move beyond somewhat arbitrary jurisdictional boundaries or the like. And Lori and I were talking about, say, the Forest Service and coordination around the watershed and other opportunities where I think this committee has its fingers into all sorts of public and private scales and institutions, and making sure that we're taking the opportunity to see where there are potentially some interesting big gains to go after as well.
And ECC is?
The Environment and Climate Committee. We had to find it already earlier in this report.
That's true.
Wes, I know you have your camera off, but I'll give you a minute here if you want to add anything. And if not, might have stepped away.
I'm working on it here. There I am. What I'm wondering is if we could have more in-person meetings. I'm an in-person guy, and I think it allowed for more one-on-one conversations. And when we had that thing in June, I think it was great. You got to put a name with a face, see what they, you know, what their issues were, their thoughts. It was really, really great. And that's all I really had was, if we could do something like that. I don't know what we would do, but even a round table, you know, get together in a room.
If you bring the lunch, I'll meet you anywhere.
Okay.
There's a challenge. Thanks.
Yeah. So
we did bring lunch last time. Actually, it was a nice picnic effort in the park there.
Yeah. No, but those are great.
Yeah, definitely. So a couple votes on a few more in-person opportunities would be useful.
Once a month, I think is good. And taking the summer off, I think works. I think everybody's busy. So that's all I got.
I think you mentioned you'd done a field trip looking at some sites last year. I think those are good. Clearly it's 40 degrees out, so that's not the best time, but I'm all for that myself.
Awesome.
We will definitely do another field trip. I think kind of just planning for that every year is like kind of either the May or June meeting is appropriate. But yeah, we'll look into it. We could probably do some of our meetings maybe hybrid too, to offer that option and see how that goes. Sometimes the technology is a little wonky on hybrid, but we could try that, see how that goes.
Great. And Shane, I don't think I've tapped you on the shoulder yet.
Sure. I mean, yeah, this is my first attendance, so not knowing all the background, but yeah, I'm curious more about gray water use and incentivizing that.
Gray water use.
Yeah.
Okay.
Scott, did I miss you too?
Yeah, you did. I obviously mentioned my desire to have us dig into some more on the groundwater and the aquifer and those kinds of things. I think that with the conservation program too, figuring out a way communication wise to communicate how you're measuring conservation and what the goals are and how you're progressing towards those goals. You know, I think people kind of, I don't know, blur over when you talk about acre feet and, you know, hundreds of thousands of gallons per day and stuff like that. So bringing it down to a level, and maybe somebody mentioned this earlier about how people can actually appreciate and scale what it is they're doing or what they're contributing and how that affects the overall conservation goal and metrics is definitely worthwhile if you're going to get community, you know, buy-in and participation. Most importantly, you got to reach them at a level where they understand and can apply it. So
Appreciate that. Yeah. I think others on this call too have shared some of that of how do you communicate effectively at both kind of the big picture level, but how it's beneficial to an individual user or family. Let's see. So we have we're at 12:08. We go till 12:30. We want to leave time to talk next steps at the end, but we also, I think Lucy wanted to give you a chance. I didn't call on you yet intentionally, but we wanted to give you a chance. It sounded like you might have a couple of things that you wanted to share out to the group. If you are interested in doing so, we could take that now. Take a few minutes.
Thank you. Yeah. I guess I'm just mostly curious about gaining understanding on how the city of Bend collaborates with other cities that are closely related. It comes to mind Prineville and the Crooked River wetlands and their wastewater treatment plant, and Madras in the North Unit. I think of their farmers and how they're facing a lot of drought. And so I guess I'm curious about how governments collaborate on water policy and if that happens regularly.
It does. So I'll answer Lucy's question because she's not a regular member of the committee. So although we could talk forever about this topic, Lucy. There is a lot of collaboration, and particularly in the Deschutes Basin. The Deschutes is kind of unique statewide with the level of knowledge about how the groundwater and surface water interact, and there are all kinds of organizations like the Deschutes River Conservancy that works specifically on marketing ways to get water transferred into the river, so there's more water in the river. There's a bunch of examples like that. So the city collaborates with like what's called the Deschutes Basin Water Collaborative, that is like all the different types of water users in the basin, the irrigators and the cities and environmental groups and all kinds of folks that are working on an updated plan for the basin. So there's that type of collaboration. As a city, we also participate in groups like Central Oregon Cities organization called COCO, and we have a water subcommittee where we meet monthly and talk about water related issues for Bend, Redmond, Prineville, Sisters, Madras, that whole area. And I'm just going to give a few examples. We collaborate with other water professionals statewide through the Oregon Water Utilities Council, which is part of the, talk about acronyms, AWWA, the American Water Workers Association. So there is a lot of that goes on. And then you mentioned about the wastewater reuse or the potential uses for that water and the North Canal. And interestingly enough, our wastewater plant, when it was built 40 years ago, it's way out to the northeast by the airport, the Bend Airport, not the Redmond Airport. And if you look on a map, it's located out, it's like right next to the North Unit Irrigation Canal. And it was built there because in 1983, the thought was to discharge the treated wastewater into the North Unit Canal. And that would provide it's not that much water compared to all the water that's used, but it's something. And to have that water, head the 25 miles up towards the farmers in Madras. And water quality regulations got in the way, plus people's perceptions about, I don't know, the poop water in the canal, right? And so that never was able to happen. And so what happened is there's some ponds out there called the Hatfield Ponds. It's a really great place to go bird watching. That's where our treated wastewater is discharged. And it's actually, some of it's evaporating, most of it's recharging groundwater. Which is, so that's not a bad thing right there. But we are taking a new look as we do an updated facilities plan. We will be taking a new look at opportunities for different types of beneficial reuse of that wastewater, and talking again with DEQ about, could that water as one option go into the North Unit Canal? And what would that mean? It gets really complicated, like even the type of wastewater discharge permit you get might have to be different. So it gets very regulatory, red tape type stuff. Did that answer some of your question? Like I could wander off forever on this.
Yeah, I think I was sort of wondering, digging at when I went to the wastewater treatment plant, we saw the North Unit Canal, and then I guess, and there are evaporation percolation ponds there.
Yep.
And then they like when we were talking about it, they made a comment of like, oh well, they'd really like the water up in Madras in the North Unit irrigation district, but they probably won't ever get it now that the regulations have changed. And so I'm just wondering if that's something that the city has been actively working on. Maybe
that's what I was mentioning, was that we are going to reevaluate that, but it kind of depends on what the regulatory agencies allow us to do. And also we have to take a look at kind of bang for the buck stuff. Like, where's the best place for that water to go? Would it be best to reuse it by it being used on golf courses? Would it be best for it to do what it's doing now, percolate into the ground and be wildlife habitat? Or would it be best to, we're also looking at ideas like, we own 600 acres of land out there, and maybe doing some collaborative work with the Forest Service or others to like grow native plants as like a native plant nursery. And then finally that idea of, or discharge to the canal if we're allowed to. So you're spot on there. Those are topics that are it's kind of restarting the discussions about that. And there might be some opportunities to bring some of that discussion to this group as well.
Awesome. So I'm going to bring us back. We've got about 15 minutes or so left, and we did want to do kind of a process. So Lucy, there may be more offline conversation, but folks may have gotten even some ideas sparking on possible future tours or something too from just that quick exchange here. We might have a wish list of places to go in person as a UPAG group next year. So the mural space will stay open if folks want to continue to chime in there on that board that we used today during the session. There's already a draft meeting roadmap in place. It's on the back side of that agenda, or on the second page of that agenda that we sent out, but we'll be refining that kind of based on some of the things that came up today. Try to incorporate a few of those things, more than a few, into the roadmap for 2024. And I did say I was going to bring up the slides here. For folks who haven't been part of the group, or new to the group, I should say, wanted to mention that there is a webpage for this group. So it is bendoregon.gov/UPAG. And we post all the meeting materials there. There's some more information, so you can use that as a ongoing resource. And it's also available, folks who are not part of the group, but who may want to attend a particular topic meeting can also use that information, see kind of what the group is up to. Our communications tend to happen through group emails to UPAG members and also through that webpage. So a couple avenues there. We have used the mural space in between meetings in 2023. We know that may or may not continue into 2024, but if you want to poke around, remember some of the topics if you've been involved in conversations, add to, or just take a look if you're new to the group on some of the other information that's available. It's the same link that'll stay accessible. Looking ahead, no meeting in January, February 7th, there's this idea to do a virtual tour of Bend's water systems. And that would be background knowledge, but also a chance to discuss some of these burning questions. So coming back to other parts of the kind of the One Water concept that you might be interested, curious about. And then March 6th, the idea was to take time on the stormwater master plan and erosion control, both on Zoom, and you should have calendar invites from me with the meeting information on both of those. So that's a quick look forward. I guess any logistics questions on that, things that people are interested in knowing a bit more about if you're new, information that you need? Pretty good. All right. We also wanted to, I think, just give a little, because we've got a few minutes left, we wanted to just take our final segment. If there were any, we're not going to meet for like a month or so. If people had something they wanted to share about another event that is related to this topic, a project you're working on, if there's like a quick, like, hey, just FYI, everybody here is super interested in water. This is going on in Bend. You might be entertained by attending. Entertained is probably a poor choice of words there, sorry. If there's anything on your docket that you'd like to share out, because we do have such a range of expertise and interests here and folks who are highly involved in the community in a lot of ways.
Well, I guess I could share one thing. This might be small cookies, but our HOA is currently working with SWS Stormwater Services to resolve a large stormwater issue that we're having. And the work is going to be set up in early January. So if anybody is interested in what that might look like, we're happy to chat. I've had tons of different consultants out and got tons of bids for various things that might work or might not work, ranging from $5,000 to $120,000. So if anyone's interested, I could go very long-winded on that. And that will hopefully be starting in January.
Which HOA is that?
Over at Meadowbrook. So I can yeah, if you're interested, we can chat offline.
You've had issues with your dry wells not working. Is that?
One's not working out of 5. Dennis over at SWS said the other ones are fine. They just need to be cleaned out annually, which they have been. They're just, I think they were originally designed for a different quantity of water 20 years ago. They're just not sufficient, and so the water's just running all over the place and creating all sorts of damage and problems. And so we're trying to figure out the best way of doing that. And yeah, there's all sorts of like get a study done for $30,000, or I mean, there's so many different ways you could go about doing this, and it's a whole group of people that don't have experience in it, right? So it's been I've learned a lot. So yeah.
Sounds like a standard HOA.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, happy to provide an update when I see you next.
On the ground solutions, right?
I think, yeah, an interesting topic. I don't know, maybe you guys talk this is, as these irrigation districts continue to pipe their canals and things, which is great water conservation, you'll continue to see more and more wells go dry as a result of that. And so I think you're going to hear people's wells going dry and attribute that to more use than the fact that they just piped the canal that was kind of leaking into their well. But be interesting to see I don't know, topics around that as well.
Great, sparking more ideas. Ryan.
Yeah, I just wanted to say DEQ is currently developing a new MS4 municipal stormwater phase 2 general permit that's statewide And so we'll be taking public comment, and Bend is under the individual phase 2 permit. But it's likely that, you know, ultimately some of those new measures will come over into Bend's permit in the next iteration. So yeah, if anyone's interested, there's info on our website, and you can always reach out to me with any questions.
Thanks for that.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah.
Any other events, happening of some sort that kind of relates to the water topic? Give one more beat.
I have folks are, you know, excited about nerding out on water. Go to there's 2 different lecture series that are kind of fun. The Deschutes River Conservancy, if you look on their website, they have an ongoing lecture series. They have one coming up next week, Wednesday the 13th at 6 p.m. that you can do. It's at Worthy Brewing, although it might be sold out, but they do have an online option, and they are addressing topics kind of regionally about the Deschutes Basin and water users. And then also the Upper Deschutes Watershed Council has been having a series of, you sign up through COCC, through the community college. It's pretty inexpensive. It's like $50 for like 6 sessions. And the next topic, I think starting in January, is going to be on Whitejuice Creek, which is the creek that drains from the Three Sisters through the town of Sisters and then joins the Deschutes River. But it's a really great story of really learning about how the regional geology and water works, and how a lot of water's gotten back in the creek because of the irrigation system piping and a whole bunch of things. So, and I think that they'll be following up with more sessions about like the Deschutes River. They also did the Metolius last year. So anyways, for folks interested in that kind of stuff, I encourage you to check it out.
Very good place to rub shoulders with other water nerds too.
Yeah,
or
like me.
recruit somebody into the club. So thank you guys so much for being here today. This is an annual review, a little bit of a different type dynamic here because we are welcoming a lot of new members. Actually, you know, about half the group is going to be new headed into 2024, which is exciting. New perspectives and interests that are going to be represented. Appreciate taking that walk through memory lane and thinking forward into 2024 and providing some input, some ideas. Continue to add stuff to the mural. We'll send a little follow-up email message here after the fact today. And this meeting will also be posted online. And yeah, we'll break for the holidays. Enjoy. Take time for yourselves and your family. Hope everyone has a good celebration. And I think we can close it out from here.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aubrey.
Nice to meet everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Yeah. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.